Hello there, welcome back. Today I'm sharing my experience with Ancestry DNA. I'm giving you my most objective, most honest review of Ancestry DNA. So, how long did it take between ordering the test and receiving my results? So, I ordered the test the 24th of October and I received my results the 24th of November, so exactly a month. So they delivered what they promised, because I think on their website they indicate that it takes 4 to 6 weeks. And so they delivered mine in roughly a month, roughly 4 weeks. So I'm happy with that. I'm a satisfied customer. Now, in terms of the results, okay, some things were a little bit I don't know, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but when I got my results, I had assumed that I was going to see percentages referring to, let's say, the Shona people. So I'm born in Zimbabwe. I also have South African descent on my mother's side. So my mother's father is South African Sotho/Pedi man, and I also understand he has some Zulu ancestors as well, somewhere in his family tree. So I thought the results would say perhaps a certain percentage Shona people, and say, these are found in this part of Zimbabwe, and then it would say this Sotho people, your DNA also matches with Sotho or Pedi or Zulu, and so on. That's what I thought. And then I opened the results, and what does it say? It says 61% Southern Bantu peoples. And then it says 29% Western Bantu peoples. I'm looking at my screen that has the results. So 61% Southern Bantu peoples, 29% Western Bantu peoples, and then 5% Cameroon, 4% Eastern Bantu, and then 1% Khoisan, so the Khoisan people. Okay, the Bantu is what had me thinking, what? Is anybody using that kind of word in 2024? I thought no one says Bantu anymore. I didn't think in 2024 Bantu is still in usage. The word Bantu, in my mind, is a word from the colonial period, when Rhodes and whoever else, when it was Rhodesia, they would refer to particular zones of the country, because they had zoned the country into national parks and Bantu lands, and then white areas, and so on and so on, basically saying this is where black people are allowed to live, these areas are white people, and these areas are now national parks, and so on. And so Bantu was used in that period, and as you can appreciate, it has those connotations. When I hear Bantu, the Bantu people, that's what I think of. That's from my history book. When I was in high school, in history class, you learned about this Bantu, Bantu lands, right? So the Bantu areas were the drier areas where black people were moved to in the days of Rhodesia. So I did not think that you could still say Bantu. So I don't know, maybe maybe the people at Ancestry DNA are not aware of this association, the connotations within that word. Maybe nobody has ever mentioned this, but it might be worthwhile having that chat with someone. So Ancestry DNA, if you're watching, it sounds a little weird to say Bantu, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Do other people agree? I'd love to hear what other people think. Does anyone still say Bantu? Have you ever used that word ever outside of history class, outside of talking about the colonial history of Africa? Have you ever had to use that word ever again? Certainly, I have not, because it's a word that was used in that very specific context, and it's sort of a word like the natives, the natives, it's like Rhodes when he was writing a letter to the Queen and saying, we encountered the Bantu peoples or the natives, and he was describing how they hunt with bows and arrows, and he's talking about the Bantu. So that's when that word was used, and it still obviously is used to describe what was happening in that era in history books, but it's not a word that you would encounter in 2024. I did not think so. This I was like, what? Bantu? What am I reading? And so Ancestry DNA, I don't know. As you can tell, this is not some serious, like I'm not offended where I'm kind of like, how dare you say Bantu? No, I'm not. I'm just saying, hey, are you aware of this? Has anybody mentioned this to you ever or not? I apologize for the noise in the background. What can you do? So yeah, that was my take on this. So overall, positive experience. They delivered with the time frame promised. I trust the results. I love science. I love science when it delivers facts like this. Now, if you wanted a more detailed explanation of my experience with Ancestry DNA, have a look at my other video. But yeah, these are my results. And I also love the fact that I'm aware now of how actually I'm way more connected to a lot of people from other parts of Africa than I realized. So, for example, I never would have guessed that my DNA is 5% Cameroon. And that's another thing that's a little bit weird in terms of how they describe your ancestral regions, because sometimes they are specific and they refer to a country. So they say 5% Cameroon, but then they get really broad and use a term like Bantu peoples. And so you're like, is this about countries, or is this, I don't know. It's like, are you describing ethnic tribes? But then suddenly you'd refer to a country, so there is no consistency in the terminology. But I get it, this Ancestry DNA, they're still kind of, I guess, learning and figuring out how to describe various ethnic groups, who to group with who, and how specific to be versus how broad. So I get it, and I think they will continue to improve. But yeah, my take on this was that fantastic service, and I recommend it to everybody. I hope everybody, because it gives you a lot of insight, man, and it tells you, like I said, it makes you see how we are all connected with each other. I'm learning that I have, Western Bantu people's 29% DNA, and some of these countries are countries like Angola, the Republic of the Congo. I never would have thought I have any connection to peoples in that part of the world, which shows my ignorance. And I'm happy to have had some of that ignorance eliminated, because now I actually, next time I meet someone from Angola, I will see them differently, because I'll actually think, do you know that we share DNA? And that we are actually kind of connected in that way. And it's connection at the most fundamental level. DNA is kind of like, yeah, that's as fundamental as it gets. It's who you are. It's how you are, what you are. Your DNA. And so so I think this has given me a new perspective on the world. It's given me a new worldview, one that causes me to see myself in other people and to see them in me, a lot more than I would have assumed, right, had I not done this. So I recommended it to everybody. It's a great service. The price is a little bit pricey. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think I paid more than 200 Australian dollars, so it's not cheap, but for information like this, it's totally worth it. So yeah, my review of Ancestry DNA is largely positive. It's just this Bantu that threw me off, because I never would describe myself in those terms. I mean, I just didn't think that was the kind of terminology that is still in use in 2024. Okay, so that's my take on Ancestry DNA, and I would love to see other people maybe from my part of the world and see what their Ancestry DNA results look like. Yeah. All right, so that's that. And tell me what your experience was like if you've done an ancestry DNA test. Did you have an overall positive experience like I had? What's your take? I'd love to know. Have yourself a lovely day.